Good evening, Fighting Scots. I'm Jen Armstrong, the Director of Alumni Engagement at Monmouth College. I want to welcome you to our event this evening titled Predicting Consumer Behavior During a Pandemic with Monmouth's very own Professor Tom Prince. We are so thrilled to see you all joining us. And before we begin, I want to cover some housekeeping items. Today's event will be recorded and available on the Monmouth College website next week. For the best viewing experience during Professor Prince's presentation, please ensure that you are on speaker mode, which can be selected in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Attendees can ask questions and using the chat feature on their screen, and we will answer those questions at the end of the presentation. Also, at the end of today's event, you'll see a short 3-minute survey in your web browser. Please feel free to use the survey to offer feedback and suggestions for future events. So now a little bit about our presenter today. Professor Tom Prince has taught marketing and management courses for the past 10 years. I'm so sorry. Excuse me. I had another version of that. I'm so sorry, Tom. So he has been in the professional corporate world for 35 years. And he was born and raised in Florida with summers at his lake house in northern Wisconsin and landing in Monmouth along the way. He's been teaching at the college for 11 years, and you can always find him in the CSB by just looking for the Q-tip, the tall guy with the white hair. I'm lucky enough to share a driveway with Tom and his wife, Marie, and I'm happy to have hit the neighbor jackpot. So if you'd like to know how he takes his bourbon, I'm happy to share. So, Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jen, and hi, everybody. Welcome. So many familiar names. Couple things first. This is how we go to work now. I know you're all familiar with it as I am, but I'm in an empty classroom. I'm in the CSB boardroom 276 with the screen turned sideways. And since only my wife is here this evening with me, I can do this. And you have no idea how good that feels. So I get to talk to you tonight as we used to when those of you that were in class where we could without the mask. But just to assure everybody for protocol purposes, I am in this room, the door is closed, and I have removed my mask because there are no students or anybody around. So I want to make certain that's clear. So many familiar names. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I am flattered that you remember me, and yes, I'm still breathing, and it's really good to hear all your names. I heard as Jen was reading the names, both Carl and John O'Connor are here. Sean McNamara has joined us. Sean, this is the first time you've ever been early for one of my classes. Thank you. So it's really wonderful hearing all these names. Drake Decker, Michelle, all these people, and Professor McMillan I see has joined us, who I miss seeing on a daily basis since his retirement, but is still a voice of reason and a man I have a great deal of respect for. So welcome to all of you and thank you for joining us. The title of this talk is How to Predict Consumer Behavior During a Pandemic. Well, if we could go back at just 1 year in time, all the things we know now that we wish we had known then. But we have some predictors. There are some things we should really consider. And things, quite frankly, that those of you that I've had in class, things you know that you may have forgotten you know. And I think this is very important. So I'll try to review some. For some of you, this will be a review, but hopefully it'll be a reminder of the confidence and the things you know that will really help you in your careers and help you in your decision making, especially in these very uncertain and difficult times. And for those of you who took my advertising class, I hope you're like I am. I'm tired of seeing ads that say, in these unusual times, in these difficult times, or we're with you, or we stand with you. Enough of that, we got it. But these are unusual times, so let's make certain we review and know what predictions can we make realistically. We've had a lot of challenges that have presented themselves and adjustments made just in order to go forward, just in order to be in class. Now, for example, an example from my world, this is how we prepare for class. I put my lesson of the day on the whiteboard. Then I take pictures of the whiteboard and I email the whiteboard pictures to all the students that have elected to be remote and are taking classes via Zoom. Then I hook up my Zoom microphone and camera. Then I try to figure out the technology so that it all works and everybody can see and hear me and I can hear and see them. So I check the camera, I check the sound, and then finally I'm ready to greet students in person, those who are here on campus. All of us have had similar experiences. Learning new technology, adapting to sudden challenges, waiting for life to begin and feel somewhat normal again. I believe some things are going to remain. There will be more work from home opportunities. There will be less work travel. There will be different ways to effectively communicate. Change occurring at amazing speeds. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight, I want to ask you, think of the change and the speed with which the world has changed around us in the last 12 months. These are important considerations when we're thinking about predicting consumer behavior in a pandemic. So that's part of our discussion this evening, our actions and our reactions in a time of change. What have we learned? What can we predict? And most importantly, I believe, what might we know but forgot we know? An important consideration, I believe. So as we get started, I'll first make clear that I make no claim to be an expert on pandemic behavior. I am not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, nor am I a seer. I do believe there are certain markers that we can turn to which help us predict some behavior that we as consumers exhibit. A couple other very quick notes as we get started. For those of you who have been on campus over the last 28 years, today is the birthday of one of our longest serving. In fact, he is now our longest serving professor. He's also our oldest faculty member. So if you get a chance, send Professor Mike Connell a birthday message. I'm not sure what birthday he's having today because my calculator doesn't have that many zeros. But email him, mikeconnell@monmouthcollege.edu, mconnell@monmouthcollege.edu, and wish him well. I'm sure he'd be thrilled to hear from you. And I'm sure those of you that have had Professor Connell in class, you still remember him, hopefully fondly. Also, one other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank my neighbor and the development department and alumni relations in particular, Mrs. Jen Armstrong. She puts on these type of opportunities. She does amazing work for our college, and we all owe her a debt of gratitude for her devotion and her efforts. She too has gone through this pandemic and had to adjust to work from home or Zooming and all the other things that we need to do to maintain alumni relations, and she's done a magnificent job. So thank you, Jen. I look forward to your questions when we're available at the end of the way this is structured. Don't hesitate to ask me anything that comes to mind. I'll do my best to answer. So what can we as consumers, what can we count on when we face sudden and unexpected change? A pandemic. 1 week, we're all hearing about a flu strain. Then we call it COVID-19. Then suddenly it's found here. COVID-19 has been discovered in the United States. And then suddenly we shut down. Wear masks, wear gloves, stay away from others. Schools, offices, buildings, churches, all shut down. What do we know about these situations and about human behavior? And also, as one who teaches management, what management skills, ladies and gentlemen, what management skills have we developed to help guide organizations through this uncertain time? Maybe I can reacquaint you with some old friends. Management skills. If you remember, we talk about developing your management skills. Human skills, the ability to communicate. Developing human skills, the ability to get your message across in a structured, concise way that people can act on. How many of you have done as I have done? Said hello to somebody and smiled and realized you have a mask on and they couldn't hear you or see you. If 60% approximately of our communication skills are delivered by body language, wear a mask and learn how to develop your human skills again. To overcome that feeling of isolation or of being muted all the time and communicate efficiently and effectively. Human skills. Then we have conceptual skills. If you remember those, we talked about that. Conceptual skills, understanding cause and effect. This is so important. It's so cool to me. The cause and effect. What happens when we shut down? What do people do? What can we predict? What behavior models do we see? Could we have predicted a year ago that gas would go down to, I paid $1.09 for a gallon of gas last winter. I filled up my wife's car for under $20. I hadn't done that in ever. What an amazing thing. What happened? What is the cause and effect? What conceptual skills do we as consumers, or as, most importantly, as managers of organizations, what do we know about cause and effect in developing our conceptual skills? And the third managerial skill we talk about is so much fun for me because it's technical skills. What technical skills have we developed? What have consumers adapted to? All kinds of technological education has gone on over the course of the last 12 months. That is so amazing to me because it may be because we wanted to, but more and more importantly, it's because we had to. Think of the technology, think of the companies that you didn't know a year from now that suddenly are commonplace. A joke that didn't make sense 12 months ago now is entertaining because we get it. It's technology that we have become familiar with. So these skills, human, conceptual, technical, these are all skills you all are familiar with. But we forget them. We forget we know these things sometimes. Please consider what these mean in our lives. At the start of the pandemic, we all, including the largest organizations or each individual household, went through some sort of analysis of these skills. If we go to the store, do we have the proper protection needed to even enter? And is it worth the chance of exposure? Cause and effect. Yes, we clean our stores. We now have sanitation by our carts. Yes, we have these things. Suddenly we either adapted or people did not go to that establishment. Cause and effect, conceptual skills. I would venture a guess that all of you at some point in time ordered a delivery because you felt it was safer, more expedient, or it was just the better thing to do than it was to go to the store. Oh, I can get Target to deliver. I can pull up in the parking lot and they'll put it in my car. Imagine a year ago, if I said you can go get a hands-free delivered pizza, you would say, what is that? Now they're advertising it all the time. Cause and effect, ladies and gentlemen, conceptual skills and the ability to be agile enough to adapt. Guiding watching consumer behavior through a pandemic. Think of your technical skills, the work from home. I would venture a guess that most of you on in this class this evening have done some portion of work from home that you normally would not have done over the course of the last 12 years. And it took a renewed effort or new technical skills to do that. So technical skills, work from home became the norm for many people. How to order goods online became the norm for many people. To find delivery services, to connect to streaming devices for entertainment. Watch me, think about this. To connect to streaming devices for entertainment. Something a year ago you might have said, yeah, I got it. Maybe I don't. But my God, we all know who Baby Yoda is today. Suddenly we had a need to learn technical skills in order to connect to things that were important to us. What an amazing time. What an amazing time to live through and to look at these skills and to realize how important they are to us. Imagine as you, those of you who are in the business environment, imagine adapting to your consumers and asking them, how can we serve you in this time? What needs are you not being met? What can we do to help? And knowing in advance what that answer is going to be. You know some of these, they're old friends, now we need reminders. But these are basic skills we learned early in management class. But these skills were misused by companies as they faced the pandemic. Cause and effect, conceptual skill, J. Crew, Neiman Marcus, Gold Gym, Pier 1, all filed for bankruptcy this year. They could not adapt to a change in consumer behavior. Certainly they had trouble going into it, but this pushed them over the edge. They were not agile enough to adapt. They lost sight of their conceptual skills. Now, think about pre-pandemic. There's two ways that you can overcome things. Two ways that you can look at barriers to entry. Do you remember these? You can do what? You can differentiate and have a differentiation model, or you can have a price model. That's it. That's all, folks. Differentiate or price. Those are your choices. We have a luxury car or we have an economical car. We have we have the best of, this is the best made sweater vest. It costs a lot of money, or this is an average sweater vest and it's on sale. It's a good price. However you want to say it. Everything is a differentiation or price. Those are the choices we have. So we look at this stuff. As we try to predict consumer behavior in a pandemic, we look and say, what has changed? During this pandemic, during the last 12 months, the barriers to entry have literally changed. We used to say it's the economies of scale, it's brand loyalty, or it's government regulations. Think of those. The economies of scale got thrown out of whack. The economies of scale was too expensive to enter that marketplace. No, suddenly there was a need that was unmet for delivery services. In such demand that the barriers to entry were literally shattered. Or think about this, brand loyalty. In the pandemic, are you kidding me? During the pandemic, you didn't care if it was Clorox bleach, you just wanted bleach. You didn't care if it was Purell hand sanitizer, you were just looking for sanitizer. You didn't care what brand of rice it was. If you wanted rice to put on the shelves, you bought whatever rice was available. So brand loyalty got thrown out the window. For those of you in the business environment right now in your organizations, consider, what does your brand have to offer that is agile enough or quicker enough that you can do it and overcome the brand loyalty that used to be a barrier to entry? And government regulations, come on. Government regulations are very simple. They change so rapidly. You cannot go into those buildings. You must wear a mask. The schools are shut down. What happened? How many people had to go out and buy desks and school supplies or computers and all these things because the government regulations changed and people suddenly had a need and it wasn't met. So the barriers to entry got over the course of this pandemic. We can see unexpected change causes a big shift in the barriers to entry. Isn't this neat? I think it's so much fun. I've been saying for the last year, as horrible as the pandemic is and all the tragedy that it's caused in his life, what a time to teach management. Look at how we have had to learn to adapt and be agile. And if you stick yourself in the mud and you go, oh, something's going on, maybe we should do a SWOT analysis on it. By the time you do the SWOT analysis, your competitors have passed you. You have to be nimble, you have to be agile, and you should be able to predict the next steps. These businesses that I mentioned earlier, Neiman Marcus, J. Crew, Gold's Gym, Pier 1, to name just a few of them that went out of business. They couldn't act fast enough. They had problems, but watch me, their skill set was not in place to deal with changes in what? In their task environments, that which they deal with every day. Suddenly the general environment went into a major overhaul, your task environment changes, and if you are not nimble enough in your organizational structure to deal with it, you get left behind. Kind of sounds like to some of you that have been in classes with me, an old talk. God, I remember when the Q-tip used to say this to me. But think about it. Are you applying what you know in your daily life right now? So much more. One of the articles I sent out in advance of this meeting spoke to 5 skills to develop right now. The importance of developing soft skills, agility, the ability to lead transformation efforts, adapt quickly to challenges and change. You, ladies and gentlemen, have a degree from Monmouth College, and one of the things you should have learned here is agility. The ability to not think or focus on one particular thing, but to see the big picture. Use these talents and skills that you know. Creativity, one of the other 5. Problem solving with creative ideas. We saw this all the time in action as we found creative ways to cope with work from home, to Zoom, to shop. Look at how many people took up new creative things over the past year. I know a lot of people who experimented with all kinds of stuff, including new recipes, and I got the waistline to prove it right now. So we look at this stuff and say, yes, creativity is important. What are we doing creativity to meet our consumers' needs? What are you doing? Communication, as I said, our communication need evolved. I struggle with students daily and remind them how critical their written communication skills are. Let me repeat that, ladies and gentlemen. Your written communication skills now are more important than they've ever been in your lifetime because our body language has been diminished by the use of masks and the use of Zoom and the use of not in-person discussion. And you know, person to person is the richest form of communication. If that suddenly evaporates or gets pulled back from us, what do we need to do? We need to rely on other forms of communication. And remember that handwritten note. Remember that well-written memo that you need. Written communication skills are critical, and people are lacking in it right now, and it's hurting organizations. We've all faced this. In fact, it has a name now. It's called the Mask Communication Challenge. Are you smiling or frowning? Are you happy or sad? Our body language has changed and has caused a change in consumer behavior. You have all walked into a store and passed somebody wearing a mask, and you've watched them back away from a shelf, back away from you. You have watched them and you don't know if they're mad at you, they're happy at you. And all of us have been in a store and watched somebody walk in without a mask and almost said, oh my God, they're not wearing a mask. Where a year ago, if you'd have walked into, let's say, if you walked into a liquor store a year ago wearing a mask, you'd have been arrested. Do you see what's changing? Do you see what's happening, ladies and gentlemen? Are you predicting consumer behavior and are you agile enough to deal with it? And then leadership. Take the initiative. articulating a clear vision. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot impress upon you enough right now in predicting consumer behavior in the course of a pandemic. I can't begin to tell you how important it is as a leader to articulate that clear vision. This is what we're doing. This is how we will represent our brand, our organization, having that leadership skill, having that trust in yourselves to make decisions. And it doesn't have to be a big organization. It can simply be for your families. To be able to articulate that clearly and get people to buy in is so critically important. Can't you see it now? These skills and development are critical to successful organizations and their understanding of consumers, but especially so when faced with the uncertainty of something like a pandemic. So we develop these skills, we look at them. I've got the whiteboard here. In order to do this class properly and to not have the lights glaring off my suddenly balding hair when I'm starting to look more and more like Professor Johnston, I've had to turn this a little bit sideways, so the whiteboard is to my left rather than behind me. But I have some notes there, of course, and also on the dais here. But there are some things I really think are critically important for us as we look at this, as we talk about this, and as I have really examined this, that I want us to consider tonight. I consider management, and I'm very serious when I say this, I consider management to be the liberal arts of the 21st century. Everything is management. Either the market decides or a management decision causes it. How we manage our daily lives, our finances, our relationships, our health, we manage these things. In the early stages of the pandemic, what happened? Advertising messages suddenly changed. We will get through this together. We are here for you. We've been here since. Brands wanted to be an integral part of our suddenly confusing lives. No contact shopping became the norm. I stood in a Menards one day in late March of last year, and I watched, and suddenly it struck me. It struck me that I was witnessing a model before my eyes, something that I had been taught years ago and something that I have taught my classes since I started here. And it was from an old friend of ours. Remember the psychologist Abraham Maslow? Ladies and gentlemen, this is really important. Things you know that can help us understand consumer behavior in a pandemic. Hierarchy of needs. I believe that good managers and leaders could predict consumer behavior and needs from Maslow's model. Maslow's 5 basic needs, and that consumers will concentrate on the lowest level. Remember, watch me now, on the lowest level of unmet need. Let's think about these for a minute. The lowest level of unmet need, according to Maslow, the physiological need. Now, you are running an organization, you're predicting consumer behavior, and a pandemic hits. What do you think about first? What is the lowest level of unmet consumer need? What are the physiological needs? Well, the basics for survival. Basic needs for things like food, water, shelter, basic survival needs. What happened? We declare a pandemic. We're starting to shut down. You need a mask to go into a store. Who went into a grocery store and saw lines waiting to get in? Got in there, and the shelves are stripped of what? Water, rice, prescriptions were being filled and they couldn't keep up. The basic needs for survival, diapers for children. Think about it. Think back. The basics. People were fulfilling the lowest unmet need. And good organizations predicted this and said, where do we fit in this hierarchy? Now watch, this really gets fun, I think. So if we go past the physiological needs, we suddenly go to level 2. You remember that? Safety needs. We have fulfilled our physiological needs. I have enough stuff in my pantry, my refrigerator and stuff where I have my physiological needs met at the moment. I need to feel safe though. I need some security. I need some stability. I need a safe environment. What happened? Think about it. You could not find Clorox. You couldn't find bleach of any brand. You could not find masks. People were looking for them because it ensured their safety. You could not find sanitizer, not Purell, not any brand of sanitizer. People were concerned about their safety needs once they had their physiological needs met. So they were looking stuff. Look at this. Gun and ammunition sales went through the roof, ladies and gentlemen. And it was predictable. When people had their lowest level of unmet need met at physiological, they will turn to safety and say, what can we do to ensure our family's safety? Those basic safety items were next on the list, and we could predict it as sure as I'm standing here right now. So we have those met. Physiological met, we're good. Safety needs, I'm starting to feel pretty good. Got some masks, we got some sanitizer, we got food, we're all good, we're locked, loaded, everything is good. What are we going to do next? This is fun part now. We're all taking a little bit of a deep breath. But man, got all this done, but we're locked up in the house together. What are we going to do? How do we do it? Belongingness, the next level on Maslow's list. We could predict this. What if you were with an organization that said, what can we do? Disney Plus hit it out of the park, ladies and gentlemen. They announced a streaming service when they had to shut down their parks because people couldn't go there. So what happened? The need to belong, we could predict that was going to happen. And watch me. You saw people do things that were amazing. The need for social interaction, the need for friendship, the need for affection, the need for love. It was predictable and we could see it coming. What happened? Belongingness. People subscribed. Netflix had a great year. Apple TV had a great year. Disney Plus had a great year. I could stream this. I could Zoom with my friends. I could talk to them. We could have a Zoom party. We could talk about the shows. It made me feel like I belonged to a community larger than myself or just in the confines of my household. Let me tell you about belongingness needs, what I really think is interesting. Belongingness needs. On March the 2nd of last year, Peloton stock opened on March the 2nd. It opened at $27.92 a share. Let's talk about belongingness need. I need to belong. Peloton, interactive bike. I can get on it. I can ride with friends. I can be challenged by people. I can join a group and be part of it. Watch me here. On Friday of last week, on February 5th, Peloton stock opened at $148.30. You bought it last year on March the 2nd at $27.92, and last Friday it opened at $148.30. I'm sitting here giving you a talk on we can predict these things. Do you think I bought any Peloton stock? No, I didn't trust myself enough. Think about it though, folks. We could see this coming. We could see belongingness as a big part of our lives. That we knew that need was going to have to be met. Over and over, we see this stuff. Belongingness, Peloton, Netflix, Apple TV, Disney. You all joined something or belonged something that you probably didn't expect to do because it was an unmet need that you needed to fulfill. Stuff you knew, but you forgot you knew. Stuff big businesses forgot they knew and didn't act on it. Stuff people who teaches us forget and don't trust themselves and don't buy Peloton stock. But it's really interesting to me. Some behavior is predictable. So let's go a little bit farther past it. We got through this. Physiological safety, belongingness, we've all lived through it. Predicting consumer behavior during a pandemic. And what do we have next? Esteem. Okay, we got all this going. I'm safe. I got my basics to survival. I've even bought a Peloton. I got things going. How do I fulfill a need for esteem during a pandemic? You know, this house needs remodeling. Yard needs a lot of work. What can we do? Home improvement sales went through the roof. Putting in that hot tub you always wanted. You couldn't buy it. If you wanted a pool last summer, you're put on a 2-year waiting list in most major markets. We're not going to be able to travel. We've always wanted to do this. Let's do this. Man, I feel good about doing this. Look at how good the remodel works. It looks so good. Something we've always wanted to do. Don't you feel good about this? Welcome to meeting the esteem need by Mr. Maslow. It's predictable, ladies and gentlemen. If at the start of the pandemic, you could say, let's look at how our organization can meet these needs, better order in lumber. Try building a house today and see what lumber costs you. And finally, we got the self-actualization, ladies and gentlemen. And self-actualization doesn't have to be sitting on the cloud and looking down and saying, look what I accomplished in my life. It could be that momentary glimpse of something that makes you feel like, oh, I've done this. This is something I've always wanted to do, and I can prove it. Watch. There are a whole lot of people that self-actualize that said, look at the time I'm spending with my family, with my kids. I'm not in the car commuting anymore. I can put my work in, I can do my work, I can put time in with my family. I have a more valuable life than I ever thought I would have. Forced by a pandemic, but it changed consumer behavior. Suddenly you're not driving your car as much, gas prices go down, you're not spending all that time getting fast food while you're driving in traffic, all this kind of stuff. You're starting to self-actualize and spend time doing those things you wish, choose, desire, yearn to do. Family time, develop new hobbies, always wanted to cook, wanted to learn how to play the guitar, wanted to learn a foreign language, wanted to learn how to sail, wanted to do something. If you could do it in the safety of the isolation or the pandemic and taking the proper precautions, people started to self-actualize and do things they always were putting off, and now they started to. And look, if you don't believe it, animal shelters had a great year. Always wanted to have a pet. I'm home, I can do it. Look at the pet shelters. They couldn't hardly keep pets in them. Why? Because people were self-actualizing and doing those things they always dreamed about doing. Because it was what the pandemic allowed us. Predicting consumer behavior during the pandemic. Most of you all on this talk tonight know Maslow. You know the very things I've talked about, but again, we forget what we know. Those of you who had me in class, I mean, this is obvious. But we overlook the obvious. We forget the obvious. For those of you that I had in class, you might remember this. I ask you sometimes, what do you know about the mountains in Holland? And I've had students sit there and say, well, they're tall, they're ice covered, they're this or that. And the obvious answer is there are no mountains in Holland. Maslow can help us predict consumer behavior if we're willing to recognize it in the context of that which we do for our organizations or in our daily lives. We can see what the next step is going to be. We need to belong. We need to self-actualize. We need to be nimble. We need some markers. I believe Maslow is an excellent marker for us into how we do things, how we prepare for our futures, and how we deal with things. So I'll ask you, consider the skills as I try to wind down here, because you can tell I love talking about this. But as I try to wind down and summarize, please think about what I said. The barriers to entry have changed. The differentiation or price has changed in a large degree, because now differentiation may mean I can deliver, it's hands-free, I can get it to you, whatever the case may be, you're differentiating at a different level. And that level is established by where people's needs are. Folks, I don't know where the next 6 months or next year is going to take us, but I would predict this. As we continue to roll out vaccines, as people start to adjust, the old normal won't be normal again. We have learned some things. Work from home will be more prevalent. I truly believe that. I believe that good managers, good organizations are going to find a way to communicate via things like Zoom that we didn't even know about a year ago. And now suddenly we live by, it seems. But that will be able to communicate and conduct their business and connect to people and lead them, deliver that clear vision, developing new techniques because it is meeting people's needs. You, in whatever organization you belong to, you work with, or even in your home life, can say with some degree of certainty, as we get through this, as we adjust, as things develop, what can I predict about myself? That I will not be the same person I was 12 months ago. That my needs have altered somewhat. That I will be more aware of certain things. It's really an amazing world right now. But we can predict some consumer behavior if we follow the things like I keep saying tonight, that I know that you know. Barriers to entry, managerial skills, and Mr. Maslow. So ladies and gentlemen, these things are there. Let them come alive for you. Look at the world around you and don't forget that which Monmouth College has provided you. The background and the knowledge to succeed in the midst of a pandemic. How's that? I'm trying not to keep going too long because I could talk about this a long time, but maybe you would have some questions for me. So, Mrs. Armstrong, if you'd like to give me any questions or tell me it's time to be quiet, whatever is best for you, you can take it from here.
All right. Tom, we have a couple comments from Janelle Odo. Thank you, Professor Prince. Love being back in the Monmouth academic environment. And also from Brad Sutcliffe. Thanks for always bringing your signature brand of passion to teaching at Monmouth College, Professor Prince. And thanks for taking the time to do this.
Well, thank you very much. Those are lovely comments. I appreciate it. And you notice that my neighbor and I coordinated our attire tonight?
Mm-hmm.
Where did Monmouth
We did.
Brett?
We did. So it's
Any
been
questions? Can I help anybody or any questions that you have?
Yeah. Any comments, any questions, please type them in. I can also, if you want to turn on your screen and say hi, I can promote you up to say hi. Just let me know. Anyone?
Everybody's hungry. They want to stay warm, right?
Oh, John O'Connor would love to say hi. Hang on 1 second. So it might take a second for him to show up, but.
I see his name there.
John, let me unmute you. Hang on. John, we can't hear you. So if you can unmute or turn on your camera, I think you can do those things.
Hey guys, sorry. Thanks, Professor Prince. It's been great to see you and hear you again. It's been a long time. So thanks for, like Brad said, bringing your signature style to a lovely Wednesday night.
To a lovely Wednesday night, John. I know it is. I hope you're using suntan lotion and being careful outside. How are you doing, John? Are you well?
Yep, everything's good over here. So
then
how are you?
Please do.
How are you guys holding up there at the college?
Everything is going well. I certainly have no complaints. Like Dickie J says, we're living the dream. And John, please do me a favor and give my best. I know Carl was on this, to Carl, and also to your folks. I miss seeing them. Give them my best, please.
Yeah, I sure will. Once things settle down, I think we should go out to eat again.
I think we could probably arrange that.
All right, thanks, John. So we have also Janelle Odo again says very insightful, lots of great notes to bring. Sorry, my screen is moving. Back to my team. Leon Kraut says, good review of Maslov. I picked it up in my master's program at Georgia College and State University. Sean McNamara, looking good, Professor. What could we learn from events like this if we went the other direction? Would companies like Amazon, probably not as big, but direct to consumer, be able to survive if somehow the internet was hit with a virus?
Sure. That's a great question. I think that business and managers find a way to adapt. Would it be more local? Would there be more community distribution centers rather than Amazonian type distribution centers? Probably very true. But, and Sean, you graduated, you've been out in the working environment, you know this. Creative, remember we talked about creativity just a little while ago. Creative managers find a way to adapt. Amazon is a monster. Amazon is huge. And if you're being real successful, one of two things are going to happen. Amazon's going to buy you, or they're going to do their best to put you out of business. Let's face reality. Hopefully you're successful enough where they want to buy it rather than put you out of business. But you're going to have to fight like crazy to do that. If their main source, if Amazon's lifeblood, the internet, changes, if it gets corroded somehow, then there will be other creative managers who find a way to say, this has happened. All that means, Sean, is the barrier to entry has changed. What will take its place? I mean, there are still people who keep ham radios around because they're internet proof. They're not disrupted by technological changes that happen in other mediums. So there are alternatives, but just right now the barrier to entry is too great. But there will be a moment in time. Everything has a lifespan. There will be some lifespan that says the internet will morph into something else. If you looked at the news today, Elon Musk is talking about putting his new space venture, doing an IPO with it, low Earth satellites that will change the face of the internet. It will change the face of our daily lives if this really explodes. And if he does an IPO on it, consumer behavior tells me that people are going to want to be a part of it. Look at the news, investigate it, because that could be the next gen. I'm not saying it will be, but it very easily could be, because there's God, then there's Elon Musk when it comes to who has the most money, and then Jeff Bezos. They're all right there in that level. But what's really interesting is that even the people that are controlling the market now are trying to disrupt it. Because if they can disrupt it, what do they get, Sean? They get a competitive edge. Such an amazing world, isn't it? I hope that answered your question, Sean. I tried to do better than I did years ago when you were in class, but you were half asleep then anyway, so it didn't matter.
Okay,
Anything else?
we have another question
Sure.
and comment from Ginny Jacobson. Thank you, Professor Prince. It's wonderful to hear your enthusiasm. How does behavior address those seniors who have chosen not to buy cell phones or computers? It seems that level 3 through 5 of Maslow are not being met. And at the same time, there are marketing opportunities.
Hi, Jeannie, and I would agree with that. I think the senior, obviously the first response by most organizations is going to be driven by where's the greatest return on investment. Simple equation there. I hate to say it that coldly, but That's the way businesses can monetize their investment in what they're doing. Now, I will say this, that I think there are some unique things going on, especially with seniors, that are quite interesting. That entire market got disrupted hugely, from senior residences to senior living, and the lack of being able to gather, the lack of seniors to be able to socialize in the way that was their norm, if you will. And that is a market that really has some holes in it, because um, as much as we would like to believe that technology is so friendly, it terrifies a lot of us. It's very, very difficult to adapt. And you get to a point where you're not comfortable, and it causes more anxiety than it's worth. And I think seniors right now have a tendency to be quite isolated. So I would agree with that. I think that level 1 and 2 for seniors is met. They can handle some of these things. But I think where seniors are left somewhat behind, and I think needs to be addressed, quite frankly, is on the belongingness issue. Marketing, and if you look at marketing, they're starting to do it. I've seen more cricket ads than I've ever seen lately. I've seen more ads directed from everything from walk-in baths, from bath fitters, or other companies, to things that are directed to the senior audience, saying, join this, or be a part of this, be a part of this community, or here's how we can make your life more comfortable. So I think we're starting to see it, but I would agree it is lagged behind. Seniors are harder to monetize than a younger demographic. It's just a fact, that's a reality. So we look at it and say, I believe Maslow is still applicable, but I believe for certain demographics, Maslow is going, once you get to level 3 and up, at a different speed.
Right, thank you. Sean McNamara says, great analysis as usual. I guess I should have taken more night classes to stay awake. What do you think of Bitcoin purchase by Musk, since you mentioned him? Predictable with the market actions from a couple weeks ago.
I would never claim to be anywhere near able to predict any action by Elon Musk. He marches to a drummer that I have never even heard of. But I'll say this: Musk is smart enough, Sean, to say if he even mentions it somewhere, it's going to cause a reaction, a very serious reaction. Musk giving Bitcoin credibility. Just the mere mention of Musk saying, we are considering taking Bitcoin as a purchase element for Tesla, gave Bitcoin credibility that they really wanted outside of the investment world. But think about the transition. He's moving it from the investment world to the consumer world. That is a huge step, Sean. And I think it's really cool, because what Musk, I guarantee he's got a big stake. He has a stake in Bitcoin that he's saying, if I can bump that market a little bit, I'm going to make another $1 billion or whatever he is. So, I mean, what's Elon Musk worth? He's just behind Bezos. I guess Bezos is worth more at $176 billion, and Musk isn't far behind as far as his net worth. Musk is smart enough to know every action I take has a reaction. I think Bitcoin is a good bet. It seems solid enough. If I mention that we can take it for Teslas, look what it's going to do to what I've invested in Bitcoin. Probably a really good in Elon Musk's world. I've checked my lineage. I'm not related to him. I wish I was.
All right, I think that's about it. So, Professor Prince, thank you very much. Do you have any last closing comments?
Just thank everybody for showing up. Drake, I hope you're doing good. Hope your golf game is good. All of you. I can't mention you all by name. I would take too long. But thank you for your time and showing up. I appreciate it. I take it as a very deep and sincere compliment that you would take your time this evening to spend time with me. So I miss all of you. Come see us on campus, and take care of yourselves. Be careful.
Yes.
Thanks, Jen.
Yep, we can't wait to see everybody back on campus. But in the meantime, the Office of Alumni Engagement has some great events lined up to kind of keep you busy through these cold winter months. So on Tuesday, February 16th at 6 p.m., Athletic Director Roger Haynes, class of 82, hosts a town hall to give us a look behind the scenes at athletics over this year. And for a complete lineup of those events, and to register, visit the Monmouth College website. Just go to alumni and then events. You'll see everything. And as a reminder, when you leave the webinar, you'll be invited to take a survey. We would love to hear your feedback and see what kind of events you'd like for us to produce for you. So thank you for taking time out tonight to spend with us and for taking the survey. And many, many thanks to Professor Prince for being so generous with his time. Thank you to everyone, and just have a wonderful night and a wonderful week. Stay well, stay warm. Good night, all.